Tonight, we will discuss states. When we open the Bible and read the story that is given to us, we may think we are talking about people that lived, individuals, persons that, as we are. But it's not so. The characters depicted in the Bible are not the individuals named. They are simply states signified by those names. For instance, the name Moses, or the name Abraham, or the name, or any name that you find in Scripture. They are not individuals, as you and I are. It's simply a state of consciousness through which the individual, you and I, the immortal being, we pass through these states. The word Moses means to be born. It's the old perfective of the Egyptian verb to be born. Abraham, the father of the multitudes. We start there, moving through states, and you and I pass through these states towards our own redemption. We come to the end, and that state is personified in Scripture, and men take the personification and worship it as a person, stick it on the wall, and then cross themselves before it and genuflect, not knowing that these are states. So we must learn to distinguish between states and the individuals who pass through these states. These states are eternal. They are forever. You are an immortal being, and you move through states. The states remain permanent forever. You pass on. We change states. The states do not change. We change states. But we, the individual, we are forever. It's like moving through a city. The city remains, but we pass on. To think that because we have left the city, that the city has ceased to exist would be stupid. The city remains, and we go on. We pass from one state to another state, and finally we come to the end. That end is described in Scripture as Jesus. But that's a state. You are the immortal being, passing through states. And when you come to the very end, you are in that state. It was predetermined. It was shown all of us before we started. Shown us in the state called Abraham. We saw it all in detail. And if we entered it reluctantly or not, who knows? Paul tells us that we were made subject unto futility, not willingly, but by the will of him who subjected us in hope. And the hope was that we would obtain the glorious liberty of the sons of God. So, we were told that it was not altogether a willing subjection on our part. But we kept the divine vision, as Paul said, in time of trouble. And so we continue on the journey. In this world, you and I can create states. But the spiritual states are eternal. We create a state here, it's not eternal. We create a state to deliver individuals forevermore. I create a state, somebody asked me, will you hear that I am, and they name what they would like to be. All right? So that I must create the state, knowing that he is now in a state that he dislikes. I must distinguish between the being and the state that he is in. So I see him unemployed. All right? So he's unemployed, and he wants to be gainfully employed. There's nothing wrong with that. So I represent him to myself as one who is gainfully employed, who has more than he's ever had before. To the degree that I am self-persuaded that he is what I have now imagined him to be, to that degree he will actually become it. I move him out of one state into another. But that state into which he fell remains for anyone to fall into it. And all can fall into it at the same time, for that matter. He's not the only occupant of the state of being unemployed. There could be millions being unemployed. And there could be millions who desire to be out of it. Many who are unemployed have no desire to be out of it. They prefer to be on welfare. That's their desire. Perfectly all right. But if someone desires to be gainfully employed and to leave the state of being unemployed, you and I can create that state. Well, how do I create the state? By using my imagination. Imagination is not a state. It's the human existence himself. You are all imagination. And God is all imagination. You are God. And God is actually within you as your own wonderful human imagination. Now, these permanent states of the soul, these spiritual states, they remain. You and I pass through them towards our own redemption. But in the interval, we meet a friend, and the friend is in need of help. And the help is to move him out of the state. I can give him money, but as Peter said, silver and gold have I not for thee, but such as I have give I unto thee. And he creates a state, and takes the man from being a beggar, who's always begging on the corner, and puts him into a state where he jumps up with joy. He's now employed, not begging for money. So he didn't give him coins, he simply gave him a new state of consciousness. So I take you as an individual. I represent you to myself as the one that you would like to be. The one that I, if I were in your state, would like to be. I make it fit within what is known as the golden rule. I do unto others as I would have them do unto me. If I were in that state, would I like to be in some better state? Certainly. Well then, do it to another. And so if he asks it of you, you simply represent him to yourself as being gainfully employed, or if he's unwell, as being well, or if he is not, if he wants to be married and he can't find the proper mate, then in your mind's eye, you assume that he has found the proper mate. Whatever it is that is a normal, natural request that is not in conflict with your own moral, ethical code. And you create a state. This state, then you lift your individual into that state. But how do I do it? I carry on a conversation mentally with that friend from the basis that he is in that state. He tells me how happy he is with his new job and how much he's making. I see him in my mind's eye radiant. Well then, am I self-persuaded that this imaginal act is a fact? Do I really believe in the reality of what I've done? Do I believe that imagining creates reality? I do. Well then, to the degree that I am self-persuaded, he becomes the embodiment of what I've imagined him to be. These are states. So man must distinguish between the individual and the state that he is in. So Blake said, I do not consider the just or the wicked to be in a supreme state, but to be every one of them states of the sleep into which the soul may fall in its deadly dreams of good and evil, when it left paradise following the serpent of generation. So we came down to experience death, for this is a world of death, where everything appears, it waxes, it wanes, and it disappears. So everything dies in this world. No matter how long it seems to live, it dies eventually. So we come down into the world of death. And the last enemy to be destroyed or to be overcome is death. I enter death and then conquer death to prove that I cannot die. I am an immortal being, for I am all imagination. And I cannot go to eternal death in that which cannot die, which is my own wonderful human imagination, and that is God himself. There is no other God.
Hey all, how's it going? So we're going to get into it pretty briefly, pretty much straight away today. First off, let me give the shout out to Complicated, who does the music at the beginning and end of the stream. And eventually it'll be the interval music as well. Actually, originally I intended it to just be the interval music and for us to have a different song for intro and then I use the video outro, but I've just been using it for the intro and outro because such an awesome song, and I've really enjoyed putting these lectures to it too. That one on YouTube, it was listed as Imaginal Acts Become Facts, but I didn't confirm that that's what that lecture is actually called. And what's pretty cool about it is it has a lot of the same exact phrases and sentences that were in Infinite States, the lecture we did just Saturday. Today I was looking through a bunch of lectures to do for today. Oh, by the way, Complicated streams every Saturday. He also had an impromptu game stream today, which is why it says he most recently streamed Warframe. Because he'll start doing more of that, more game streams, but that was the first time doing a game stream. However, every Saturday he plays with his trio at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check them out, give them a follow. Go listen to the most recent music stream while you're listening to this if you want, because it'll be cool little, see if it syncs up or not. But yeah, they'll be doing the music stream again Saturday. But so today when I was looking through different lectures to look at, I was like, well, we did Infinite States, maybe we could do Infinite Power, and I read a couple other ones. I was like, these are a little bit too much too soon, especially for any sort of person who stumbles upon this like through some other, through like some kind of referral on Twitch or something like that, who just wants to really know about the law. It's a little bit too much to promise, a little bit too much mystical visions that quickly. Though, I know a lot of people I talk to are interested in that aspect of it. So I wanted to find one that was a little bit more practical into the law and had a nice example in it. And when I was looking through the list, I saw this one, which is Release Barabbas and Crucify Jesus. Originally, when I was thinking of doing this lecture, I wanted to have a more informed knowledge of the crucifixion of Jesus, but let me be real, I don't. Like, as a conscious man, like my conscious mind does not. The deeper one within me and within you, which is the same in all of us, knows the story because it wrote the story, okay? So in that sense, we all understand the symbolism of Barabbas and Jesus already. But the cool thing I found just quickly looking at the wiki of Barabbas before I started the stream today is that there's this idea that Barabbas was actually Jesus Barabbas, that historically that might have been his name, because in some earlier, I think it was Greek versions of the Bible, the name was listed as Jesus Barabbas. And then Barabbas, the name, because I've been countering in the Neville context for so long now, I thought Barabbas meant robber, but it doesn't. It means son of God, which is super interesting. That this guy's name, that this symbol's name, also means the same that most people think of when they think of the name Jesus itself. So that sort of duality to it, that sort of added a whole extra flavor to it. And you can investigate that on your own if you're more interested in it. But really, I think the simple duality that Neville uses between Jesus and Barabbas is that essentially Barabbas is the robber and Jesus is the salvation, the Savior. And so as we apply that to consciousness, Barabbas is the thoughts and the state that robs you of your good, robs you of experiencing what you prefer to experience, and Jesus is the experience of having what you want, being who you want to be, living in a state that you prefer. And so the central message of it is to give up robbing yourself through consciousness, through your thoughts, through how you think of yourself, and instead move into thinking of yourself as being the one who already has what you desire. If you don't listen to the rest of the lecture, that's all you need to know. But it does have a really nice experience that one of Neville's students had with a friend of hers as the central piece in this one. And I think for people especially who are interested in, I'm just checking my camera froze. Hold on, guys. Ooh. That's annoying. Just give me a second here. Well, these things, they happen, right? Okay. Hey, it happened. So I don't know. It kind of sucks because I might have been frozen for a lot of my basic intro there that I would have used as a clip. But hey, when I'm doing this as a live stream as opposed to a pre-recorded video, that it is what it is. Sometimes things are usable. Sometimes things get messed up, and it should be back working now. If it freezes again, it freezes again. If these things happen. But yeah, my whole point was that all you really need to derive from this lecture at the end of the day is to stop robbing yourself in terms of your thoughts. Stop thinking, like let's say, well, in this context, this lady's, the woman discussed her goal was to be married after I think she was widowed. Or had never married either, or it had been a long time. It had been close to 20 years that she had been without a partner. And so the central idea is that instead of continuing to dwell in that, instead of continuing to think of yourself as someone who's never going to meet someone, or someone who's single and it just never works out, or someone nobody wants to commit to, those kind of thoughts, you're keeping yourself from your good, and instead to move into the state, the consciousness of being someone who has a happy marriage, who is a treasured partner, who has the love relationship that they want. And you can apply that to, anything. If you want money, you have to get out of this mindset of poverty and move into a mindset of wealth. If there's a certain job you want, stop thinking of yourself as not being qualified to do it, or how could you ever get it with your lack of experience, or there's so many people who will get the job instead of me. Stop doing that and assume the consciousness of already having this job, of, yeah, this is my title, this is the amount I make every year, I love my job, it's so fulfilling, etc. Just to give some basic examples that I know are desires that a lot of people have. But yeah, let's just go straight into it because I don't think there's much more I want to elaborate on to start off today. But hey, as we get into it, I'm sure I'll come across a rant. That'll be nothing to do with the lecture, but fun to get into all the same. Okay, so release Barabbas and crucify Jesus. As you know, we feel that life should be a perpetual increase of the things you love. That to me is the art of living. And a man's ability to live in the end, to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, lies man's capacity to live the more abundant life. I do not care what your objective is. Feeling that you have it is living a more abundant life. First tonight, let us turn to 3 who were awake. And by 3, I mean 3 men. The whole purpose of life is to awaken and join the chorus of awakened humanity, which is God. We will turn to a great poet, one who passed from this sphere only within the last 2 or 3 years, Walter de la Mare. So flows experience, the vast without. It is the microcosm of the soul within. The day-distracted eye may doubt, but no longer as the dreams begin. Think of it. The vast without is the microcosm of the soul within. The day-distracted eye cannot believe it, but you take this and expand it to the nth degree and see that the vast without is only the microcosm of the soul within. How can man believe it? Now we will turn to the great bard, Shakespeare. Everything in the world is the projection of something that I activated within myself. I meet a friend and I say that I love him, and I see in him something that I would like to change. Everything in this world is the microcosm of this vastness in my own being. Everything in the world, no matter what it is, all the so-called evil could be changed. Would man, observing, distill it out? If I knew this, I could look at anything, any condition, as a scientist could look at bubbling mash, and know I could extract something from it that is good. Blake tells us, he who does not imagine in stronger and broader lineaments, and in stronger and brighter light than his perishing and mortal eye can see, does not imagine at all. This is in a way a parable. A parable is a story told to illustrate a truth. In 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6, in the letter which Paul writes to the Corinthians, these are not the people of Corinth. You are Corinthians, for these are stories of the mysteries. And so this is Corinth. So the letters are addressed to those who are interested in rising to another level of consciousness. We are the ministers of a new covenant, not written in the code, but in the Spirit. So remember the teaching, the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. So we are ministers of a new covenant. You be the judge, for I am not here to judge you. But if I came and whispered in your ear that you were harboring a robber, would you react violently? You be the judge, but I will tell you a story in the code written in the form of a letter. This is the story of Jesus and Barabbas. Now it was the season of the year when it was customary to release a man who was imprisoned. Whom will you have me release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus? And they cried, release Barabbas. Crucify Jesus. And when the wife of Pilate said to him, will you do this thing? He washed his hands, etc. So that's the whole in the crucifixion story. Supposedly, and this is something that's contested historically, there was at this time in the Roman Empire, there's a tradition during Passover that the Romans would let a prisoner free, and the crowd, the gathered multitude, asked that Barabbas be set free instead of Jesus, who had just been captured. Now take that, and that is a code, but what does it really mean? That it took place actually? We are warned of those who depart from the truth and those who think that the resurrection has already taken place. They have wandered from the truth, for if it has already taken place, then I cannot know the power that resurrects every dream in the world. The resurrection must be taking every moment in time in all men. The Passover does not take place at a certain time of year like Easter. The Passover takes place every moment of the day if we are willing to pass over into another state. There must always be a passing over from one state to a higher state. So which will you have me release, the robber or Jesus? Which will you let go of, and to which will you hold fast? I must release the robber, for I am housing him. Who is he? If this moment you want something, and reason tells you that you cannot have it, then you are entertaining the thief that robs you of being what you want to be in this world. This is the son of Satan, something in me that robs me of that other son who will save me. And the thing that will save me from what I am is Christ Jesus. And what is keeping you from what you want? That is Barabbas. I think that's a pretty simple breakdown of how Nebel views this aspect of the crucifixion story. If that isn't clear enough, I think the example will make it totally clear. So they crucify Jesus. They fix the state desired. The whole drama takes place in you. You must release Barabbas and crucify the Lord. You must learn the art of doing it. I can tell it best now by telling a case history I have just received. This is what she told me. She had a neighbor, a woman who had been divorced for 19 years and who was up to her ears in debt. So it was a divorce. It wasn't a widow situation, but it had been 19 years. She worked hard, but she could not get beyond a day-to-day existence. She could not afford a vacation, though she had one due, and in 4 weeks, college was starting, and her son wanted to go to college, and there was no means with which to send him. She had prayed over her problem, but she had gotten nowhere, and then she asked this lady who wrote the letter to pray for her. The lady explained to her this teaching that I'm giving you here, and then she did what follows for her neighbor. She asked her first, "What do you really want?" Well, this woman had been divorced for 19 years, and she had lost her faith in men. But she said that above all, she would like to be happily married and out of debt. Every night for a month, I think this is really incredible that she did this for this woman. Every night for a month, this lady from the class here went to her neighbor's house and talked with her and made her think of the qualities she most wanted in a husband: gentleness, kindness, tolerance, attentiveness, honesty, etc. All the qualities she felt a man should have, she had to name over and over. And then the lady asked her, "Can you feel the embrace of such a man?" And the other lady said, "Yes, I think I can." And then she did something else. She went through the marriage ceremony with her neighbor, the part of putting on the ring and hearing the words, pronouncing the couple man and wife. And then she left her neighbor with the suggestion that she sleep in that state and promised her that she would do the same thing. That is, sleep in the state herself of having just seen her neighbor married. They did this for 4 weeks. And then a man came into her office, the office of the neighbor, and in talking, he asked her where she was going for her vacation. She was ashamed to confess that she was not going anywhere, so she said she thought maybe she might go up to the High Sierras, and the man said, "Then you must be my guest, for I own a hotel up there." He booked rooms for 3 of them, the woman and her son, and the lady who had helped her. The man was very kind and helpful to them. He told the woman that he had lost his wife a few months before, but he also told her that he would never marry again. The woman had grown fond of him and was distressed by this and told the lady who had helped her, "What will I do now? He's never going to remarry. He said so." The lady said, "You are happily married, so we are not going to discuss this. You slept every night in the feeling of having a wonderful husband, a man who has the qualities you desire. So how can we discuss the matter? You are married." That was over 2 years ago. She has been married to this man for 2 years. Yes, he changed his mind about marrying again. He is sending this woman's son through college. She said recently to the lady who helped her with the teaching, "You have no idea how kind and good he is, how wonderful." The woman said, "Haven't I? I set up these qualities with you and helped you. do you think I don't know what he is like? So I think that's, I mean, if that doesn't make sense. And then I know that this is a really great example for a lot of people, because one question I see everywhere that Neville is talking about relationships, or anybody's talking about relationships in any area where Neville might ever come up, or doesn't come up directly, but that's what people are talking about. People are always asking the question, what if I don't have a person in mind? So they know they want either a marriage or some other form of committed relationship, but they don't know they don't have a person in mind. And here you have the exact steps for that. I mean, she just helped her make a list of the qualities she wanted in a person. And then when she asked her, okay, could you feel the embrace, in this case, of such a man, but you could apply it to anybody. And you could also apply it to any other form of relationship you want. You could certainly do it with a business partner, with a friend, with any kind of relationship you desire whatsoever. When you could, for someone looking for a creative collaborator, write out the qualities you'd like in this person, and certainly imagine what it would be like day to day working on a project you want to work on with them. You could do this for basically anything. Now, there was this also element of doing a physical imaginal activity that you don't see in too many Neville examples, and it's not necessarily required. You could do some form of it if that's what you want to do, but it could also entirely take place in your mind. Like, she had this lady helping her to sort of guide her through it, but there's no reason why this can't take place entirely in your mind, and you can't reduce it to something much shorter than an entire ceremony. Neville's main advice when it came to particularly women who came to his meetings who wanted to be married but didn't have someone in mind, or they were undecided about a couple different guys or whatever, was to just put on a wedding ring in imagination. Wear a wedding ring, and sort of at night fall asleep twisting it in your hands and saying it's so wonderful that I'm happily married. There was an example of a woman who did that, and I'll save that story, because that story it really deserves its own full telling of what Neville was told about it. But then there was also another really cool experience, which I've had trouble finding again, where two people had done this. A man and a woman had both done it, and they'd both been going to Neville meetings, and they met at a dinner at one of the meetings. So that was and in the man's case, he bought a physical ring, and in the woman's case, she had been doing it in imagination only. I bring that up because the idea is that either works. The point is that whatever you're doing, allowing you to feel into, move in consciousness into the state of, in this case, marriage. But you can apply it to whatever you want, Now back to the crucifixion. You must release the consciousness Barabbas, the robber. This woman robbed herself for 19 years. She robbed herself of the lovely things of life. Finally, she faced a choice, either Barabbas released or Jesus released, or Jesus crucified. That should be Barabbas released and Jesus. Either Barabbas released and Jesus crucified, or Jesus released. In other words, keep denying herself what she wants, or finally move into have the feeling of having it. If I want to be anything in this world and say I cannot be that, then I am robbing myself of the ability to be it. Man can be anything in this world that he wants to be, for man awake is the Son of God. There is only one Son, and that is Christ Jesus, and that Son is human imagination, the only Christ Jesus in the world. There will never be another. So I look out on the world, and I think it towers over me, and I do not know that actually it is a microcosm of the soul within me. If I do not know it, start the dream to prove it. Can you feel embracing arms around you? This woman began the dream and then realized it. The whole vast world without only mirrors the soul within. The Passover means the passing over into another. When we were children, we were told that Jesus sacrificed himself for us 2,000 years ago. That is belief in a lie. You depart from the truth if you believe the crucifixion is already past. It is not over. It is constant fact every moment of time. It is not past, and it must be continually taking place. The whole vast drama unfolds within us. We can distill out of any situation the good that is in it. You can take it as you take a mash and distill the essence from it. You are told the Old Testament is one covenant and the New Testament is another covenant. Do not believe it. There is only one book. When you find the spirit of it that sets you free, that is the new covenant. The letter killeth, the spirit giveth life. Take the same code and reread it, and strike, as it were, the rock, and then draw forth the water and make it into wine. Rock, as we are told, means literal fact. Water means psychological understanding. Wine means the application of that truth. If you know this, every dream in the world can be realized. In the capacity to live in the wish fulfilled lies your capacity for living the more abundant life. The stories which I tell you are stone, if you take them literally, but water, if you understand them, and then they become wine if you apply what you have learned. You can get all the results as this lady got them. But the lady who is now married, though she is happy, she may slip into a way of life and forget how this was brought about. People quickly recover from this teaching. I could tell you so many stories of friends of mine who wanted help and who told me the dream they wanted to come true. And with them I listened as though I heard and looked as if I saw what they wanted to see, and the thing became true in their world. This is a story of my brother-in-law told in one of my books. He knows that story is there, and though all my other books are in evidence in his library, that particular one he has put up so high that no one can reach it. He is such a factual, realistic person that though the dream he wanted most in the world was brought about, now he is embarrassed when he thinks about the way it was brought about. He is too down to earth to want to remember it. I don't know what he's referencing there. It might come to mind later as I'm reading the rest of this out. But before I advance, I want to move back to one important point that came up in the experience of between these two ladies. So when they, as you can see here, when they went to the hotel, so he said he's never going to remarry. So in that moment, the neighbor lady, from hearing this, she had the complete opportunity to bring Barabbas back into her consciousness, at least with as regards to this man, to say that, well, it's not going to happen. You know, we did that every night, and I appreciate that, but I don't think it's going to happen, at least not with this guy. But then the friend who went to the Neville lectures and taught her said, "You are happily married. We're not going to discuss this. You've done what you've done. It's going to manifest. You're already married. So I don't care what the guy said. You're already married. Like I married you 30 nights in a row. I slept in it. I know the qualities you want in a person. I know this guy ticks all the boxes. You're married. I don't care what he told you today." I think the difficulty a lot of people have, whatever the desire they want, whether it's a relationship or it's something else in life, like maybe if it's a job, it's the first call back saying, yeah, sorry you didn't get it. In those moments, you need to still persist. Don't invite the robber mindset back in just because you encountered one little distressing thing in the outer world, no matter how distressing it may be. I mean, it's been a while since I really looked at forums related to Neville, though I still do browse for success stories, but people mention a lot, when it comes to relationships, basically hearing things that hint towards not being interested in commitment when the person has already imagined them being married. And in those moments is when you need to stay persistent and you need to continue to believe in what you've done, and not give up, not invite the robber consciousness back in. There's another story, we haven't done this yet on the stream, which is weird because it's probably the most famous Neville story, where Neville's mentor, Abdullah, is mentioned. And in that story, Neville wanted to go to Barbados. And, he had basically gotten some sort of news that hinted that he may not go, or he was just in general uncertain of how he would get to go back, because at the time he couldn't afford it. And his mentor, Abdullah, the story goes, physically slammed the door on him, like told him, we're not going to discuss this, you're in Barbados, and slammed the door on him. And so wouldn't entertain any more thoughts of doubt from Neville. He wouldn't let Neville do that. Well, a lot of times you have to do that to yourself. You have to cut off those thoughts yourself. You have to stop your mind and your state. You have to stop moving into that state. You have to stop yourself from going back into that old state once you've claimed something new. I know recently Neville had brought up the metaphor of, when you have new clothes, it takes a little bit of time to wear them in and feel comfortable in them. It's the same with the state, and these things that happen in the outer world, that they're like, it's showing you what you're going to give up when you move into the new state. And when they come up, you're allowed in that moment, you have the total prerogative to abandon the new state and go back to the old state. You're completely allowed to do that. And in the case of a relationship, that might mean saying, well, he's never going to commit. In the case of the job, it might be saying, well, I didn't get it, and I don't know, I guess I'll never work in this position or at this company I want. In the case of money, you might have a total tumble back in mindset and say, well, I guess I'll never get ahead, I'll never afford this house, I'll never have this car, whatever it may be. So just be aware that when those things come up, you don't need to entertain them beyond ignoring them. Like, you can really just say, okay, well, that happened. Doesn't matter. I know what I imagined. And every time it comes up, just put it out of mind. You may even want to come up with a sort of dismissive affirmation for it, or even look at it, especially if it's fear-based. Allow yourself to sit with it, experience it, and then dedicate it. You literally just sit with it and say, I dedicate this feeling to the Father within. I have no more need of it within my life. And you'll sort of just feel it dive deep within you. And it shouldn't come up anymore after that. If it does, each time you just sit with it and dedicate or devote. Devote is also the biblical term for it. You devote that particular fear or aspect of that state. You essentially send it back to eternity. I'm pretty sure in this, if not in this lecture we're reading now, in the one that was playing at the beginning of the stream today, Neville talks about and this is a more kind of esoteric aspect of it, but he talks about the concept that states are eternal, but in our practical experience of them, they're very changing. They're constantly changing. They're very serpentine, but the state does exist eternally in spirit. Okay, let's get back to the lecture. So I tell you, we must remember the story of the crucifixion. As Paul said, I die daily. I should be dissatisfied. I should have always a divine dissatisfaction and transcend to become one of the awakened brothers. I cannot live on what I learned today. Extend the borders of your tent. Not only must I grow, but I must also outgrow or I'm not growing. Also, I must outgrow or I'm not growing. Let no one tell you that the world is your end. You are a fabulous being. You do not change worlds by spatial travel. You change by a change in consciousness. Subjective or objective is determined by the level on which my consciousness is focused. I ask you to construct a little drama that implies you have realized your dream. This lady went through the ceremony of marriage, and with a man who had all the qualities she wanted. And in 5 weeks, the drama began to unfold. The whole thing took 3 months, and now this lady is happily married. Everything you want is within, for the vast without is only the microcosm of the soul within. But though you doubt, you will no longer doubt when the dream begins. He who does not imagine in stronger and brighter lineaments than this perishing and mortal eye can see, does not imagine at all. Smell a rose. See it. You can see and smell it the degree your attention is centered on it. If you let it possess your mind, you will see it and smell it. That is being creative. You see what you want to see and enter into and live it as if it were true. Others may call it fantasy, and when it becomes real, they will believe you did it this way. But let anyone else believe what they want to believe. I think it says they will. I think he meant that transcription mean to say they will not believe you did it this way. But let anyone else believe what they want to believe. I told a friend of mine who was critical, without taking the trouble to know what he was being critical of, your taste and your opinion do not qualify you to criticize. You must. I should take that on myself. You must first know what I am trying to do, and then you may venture your opinion. But if you do not know what I am doing or what I am trying to do, then how can you presume to criticize? Everything in this world is done through imagination, but many people do not see it. But do you know of anything that was made that was not first imagined? But you make your dream and walk in it as if it's true, and others will come along like workmen, following you to execute it. Edison told Tesla that it would not be possible to have alternating current. Edison said it could not be, but Tesla told him, I can see it, and I can see the machine, and I am starting it and stopping it, and I am taking out the kinks in it before I made it in the laboratory. Read that story in the book called Prodigal Genius, the story of Tesla. They called him mad before he died. You know why? He said he was communicating with Edison, who was dead. Because others could not understand this, they called Tesla mad. What Neville is saying here about, I mean, this is pretty apocryphal. Like in general, I know Edison did not believe alternating current was possible, in terms of practical application. But this little incident of them talking to each other is apocryphal. However, it is well documented because Tesla was public about it in interviews with the New York Times, and I'm pretty sure like in radio interviews and such, and in his own writings, he talks at length about how he designed everything he invented, and he operated it in imagination. He created the things totally in imagination. He would sit in his chair and build it in his mind, only in his mind. He wouldn't even write down schematics. He would do it entirely in his mind for hours at the time until it was precisely machined within his mind, and then he would draw up schematics and get the patent. But he wasn't like tinkering in a lab seeing what worked. He did everything mentally. You don't believe me? Look it up. You can read Tesla telling you how he did that. Ecclesiastes 3, I am the beginning and the end, and there is nothing to come that has not been and is. Creation is finished. We are only becoming aware of increasing portions of that which is. If everything is, am I still creative? I am in this sense. I become a selector of that aspect of reality to which I want to respond, and then I bring that into my world. It's like taking the alphabet. Shakespeare and Blake used only 26 letters. A moron would use exactly 26 letters. But think of the difference. Think of an infinite alphabet, and we select what we will from that alphabet. But you just put yourself in relation to it, and then it becomes real in your world. So this here is a pretty important and interesting aspect of Neville's teaching that if I had encountered it before, I hadn't encountered it stated in this way where it was so compelling to me. But simply the idea that you're not making anything up. You're not making anything new up. You're just becoming aware of that which already has been, that which is eternal. Your creativity is really just an enhanced awareness, which is why I think something like what David Lynch experiences, where he meditates to encounter creative ideas, is so effective, because when he talks about it, he's talking about being engaged in expansion, which is what you're doing. If you do the I am meditation, or if you just simply, let yourself daydream, you're engaging in expanding your consciousness, and in doing that, you'll encounter things you hadn't thought of before. So that's what creativity is. It's not coming up with something new. It's making yourself aware of something you would otherwise not be aware of had you not allowed that growth, that expansiveness in your own mind. And this is an important thing too, because this is a nice way of determining what remains fantasy and what manifests. You just put yourself in relation to it, and then it becomes real in your world. So whatever you're selecting, how would it exist relative to you? And if it's an aspect of self you want to embody, like marriage or wealth or having a certain job or position, who would you then be? How would you experience the world? Think about yourself. Think about your life if you had this quality already fully manifested out. The two factors which are most important in my world, I would say, are my personality and then my relation to reality. Any real change in my personality should make a change in my outer world. I can interfere with the purely mechanical action of my brain by accepting what my brain does not register. If I can imagine, then produce in myself a shift of personality, and then it works, the one condition is imposed on man, that he believe that he already has that which he wishes. And one that confirms this, when you stand praying, if you have aught against your brother, forgive him. You think this means to have something against someone? No. Forgiveness in the mystical sense tests man's ability to enter into and partake of the nature of the opposite. I think I cannot do something. That belief is what I must forgive. If I can do this, then I am forgiving myself. If I can take a friend who is ill and accept the fact that who is ill. Okay, if I can take a friend who is ill and accept the fact that he is ill, then I have that against him. I must forgive him by seeing him looking well. And to the degree that I am self-persuaded, I am forgiving what I held against him. Can you forgive a man by mumbling some words and saying you have forgiven him? You can only forgive to the degree that complete change of consciousness takes place. When I think of you, I should see a different you, a new you. If I do not see a different you, then I have not forgiven you. This lady I told you of tonight forgave her friend, for she saw her happily married, and that marriage was consummated. I tell you that no matter what your dream is, it can be realized. You will enact a crucifixion. If you think the resurrection is past already, you have departed from the truth. It must be going on eternally. It is up to you what you do now. Everyone can do it. That is the purpose of this platform, so that you may not only realize your dreams here, but that you awaken and slip into other worlds. There are worlds within this world and worlds within worlds. I know, I have seen them, and I have been in them. It does not matter what people say to me about whether I can do it or not. I know I can do it, and I do it. I know that I live in a home in West LA and come here on Monday and Thursday nights. You might as well tell me that I do not come here as to say that I cannot enter some other sphere. I cannot take you with me, for the world only calls reality what can be shared. But it was not a subjective illusion, it was real. There are many things that cannot be shared at this time, for the background of the other is not such that they are ready to receive it. But that does not make it less real. In time, all will come to it. Now let's go into the silence. And they didn't put, if there was a question at the end of this, they didn't put it on here. Let's see, the year was like 57 on this one. So there might have been a question, maybe not. A lot of the later ones, I think there were questions, but he either at that point stopped taking questions or they would omit them from the transcripts. In this case, I think it might have been omitted from the transcript. Though there were times where there were no questions. There were definitely lectures where I've heard the whole thing, and he asked were there any questions, and nobody said anything, and so he dismissed it. But yeah, there might have been a question on this one. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much. I got through this one way faster than I thought I would, because these usually take me an hour and a half. But less rants today. I hope I was clear on a lot of tying into like how this woman didn't let her unfolding get screwed up, because I think that's something that trips people up. Like a few streams back, I had as the sort of, let me switch it over to our chat room. A few weeks back, I had the stream. Gosh, I'm not reading Infinite States today. I just read Release Barabbas and Crucify Jesus. I didn't change that, but I had on there, I trust myself. So when it comes to your imaginal act, to however you're doing that, maybe you're just doing affirmations. I know that's kind of a trending thing right now to just do affirmations. Or if you've got a scene, or if you just made a list of what you want in a partner. I'm addressing again the people that ask the question. And it's usually women asking of what they should do if they want to be married but they don't have someone in mind. Having that list of qualities is very useful. If you can do like this lady did, like what would it be like to be with him, in whatever scenario you want to imagine. In this case, they imagine embrace. You can imagine walking down the street holding hands, being at your favorite restaurant, just being on the couch with them, and in that moment knowing you're married to them. What does that feel like? You don't need to have a face attached to them. You don't need to put a face on them. If there is a look you want to somebody, you can include that, but you don't have to do that, because everything exists now. So the spiritual sensation of it is actually just as real as this world. Now, I think the important part of that story that gets a little bit lost and trampled over is, so when you first meet, and let's say it is a woman who wants a guy, younger people, because this was an older lady, but, for the most part, I'm seeing younger women ask this question. And so if that's your case, when you first meet this guy, and he's got other qualities that you put on this mental or physical list, and you know that the feeling of being around him is the same that you've imagined in the past. And, whatever happens between y'all that makes you doubt, in that moment you have to have faith in yourself, faith in what you've imagined, and that you're in your unfolding. And that whatever disagreement y'all have had or whatever thing he said that upset you, that's going to totally work itself out. And that in no time at all, you'll find that it strengthens and enhances your relationship, and was actually just one little step in a series of many steps that ended in the, committed marriage relationship that you want. I just bring this up because I just see this question so many times, and then I see, situations where, I haven't been looking at the forums, but I used to see this a lot, situations where someone meets someone new and then they have their first fight, and then that kind of derails the relationship for a while. But it was clearly a manifestation, and it was clear that, they just needed to persist through it, and it would work out. And if they had just persisted from the get-go, they wouldn't have had a breakup and had to manifest them back and all this other stuff. Now, you can use things like revision when that happens, but we'll talk about that more in a later lecture. But I hope that's clear enough for anyone who finds this clipped up on YouTube whenever I clip them up. that's enough to help anyone who may be encountering that situation. Because at the end of the day, you're just having faith and trust in yourself and what you've imagined and what you have decided you're going to embody relative to this relationship when those kind of little hiccups come up. To just say, no, I know I'm in my unfolding. I know that this person embodies the qualities I wanted, so I know it's going to work out. Just to use the relationship example, because it's just one that I used to see all the time when it came to Neville's specific recommendations. And I feel like, hopefully everybody who listens to this in some capacity understands what Neville's explanation of the metaphor of Barabbas and Jesus. Looking at that Wikipedia article today, it seemed that Barabbas was not a thief, but had been possibly an insurrectionist, but they're not sure. Like what his actual offense had been, if he was a real person or not. But Neville's whole point is that none of these are real people. They're all states of consciousness. And I think he didn't say directly in this lecture, but he said in another way that, like, it didn't really matter why Barabbas was a prisoner. It just mattered that Barabbas being there, and if Barabbas had not been let go, that would have kept Christ from being crucified. In other words, Barabbas needed to be released to stop robbing the place for Christ to be crucified. That whatever you're holding in place now, you've got to let it go before you can take that salvation state and fix it in its place. I think that's the best explanation I've come up with it today. All right, so we're going to end it now. I'm going to put that lecture back on while I'm playing Campbell's music. And I hope everybody has a good week. My next stream will be Thursday. That's not right either. That's weird because I updated that. So it's going to be Thursday. That's weird because I updated that one. Thursday, 6 p.m., midnight, GMT. And then coming up on the 19th is actually Neville's birthday. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to shift that week to be a like Wednesday, Friday week, or if I'll just do an extra, whatever day that is not a day I'm normally streaming. I think it's a Friday. I'd probably just add like an extra stream that day, something to, something to celebrate his birthday that day. But yeah, all right. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got something out of it. If you ever have any questions about any of the streams, you can always email imaginationstream@gmail.com. Or if you're someone who otherwise knows me, you can just ask me, or give me your comment or whatever. All right, let's kick it over to Campbell's music.
He actually became as I am, that I may be as he is. So God became man. He's not pretending that he's a man. You can't pretend and influence anything here. You've got to completely become man and forget you are God. And that's what you've done. You are the God who became humanity, that humanity may become God. So these are states. If man knows it, well then he can forgive every being in this world for what he has done, because he only expressed the state into which he unwittingly fell. He could fall into the state of being a thief and enjoy that state. He thinks he's doing fine, much better than if he went to work every morning and pushed a little button. He's making more. He thinks he's fine. Then comes the inevitable consequences of that state. Is he willing to pay the price of going into that state? Well, usually he is unwilling. He doesn't regret the state. He wonders, what did I do wrong to be caught? There isn't a thief in this world who is regretful of the fact that he was a thief. No. What did I do wrong? So when I do it again, I must be more aware of what I did formerly that Paul took me into the arms of the law. They're only regretting what they did wrong, and they're trying to find out what they did wrong. It's a state. So everyone in this world is in a state. If I know that, I can lift him out of the state if he requests it. I don't go around looking for people to lift them out. If anyone requests it, it's a very simple technique. You ask of me something that I would ask of you, were I in your state. And so, you ask it of me. What does it cost? Nothing. You're told, come, eat, buy wine, buy milk without money, without price. It costs nothing. You simply create the state. And the state that you create, you put your friend into. What would it be like if it were true? What would the feeling be like if he really could tell me now that he is the man or she is the woman that they would like to be? Well, then persuade myself that they're telling it to me. Listen as though I'm hearing their voice. See them as though I'm actually seeing them in the flesh. And then go my business. Go about my way. Confident that that thing that I did will work. So Blake said, I had dinner last night with Isaiah and dinner with Ezekiel. And I asked them, there's a firm persuasion that a thing is so, make it so? And they said yes. In ages of imagination. But today, few are capable of imagination of anything. If you can actually believe in the reality of your own imaginal act, then these things will become facts in your world. But they are states. Now we said, I know that many people have painted, say, the Furies as three women. We have it in Shakespeare's Macbeth, the three witches. He said, I have painted them, as you know. I painted these as men, three men, the Furies, and not as three women. But you must remember that mine is vision and not fable. So you can sit down to write something and it's fable. It may have a bit of truth in it, the three are there, yes. But they're not women. In vision, you see them as men. Man can fall into that state of fury. A woman can fall into the state of fury. But when you see it in imagination, they are men. When you see these characters, just as they are painted in Scripture from beginning to end, all these are states. When you encounter the state, it looks like a person. When I stood in the presence of Abraham, it's a man, a majestic man, of 6'4", 6'6", this handsome, wonderful man, looking into the distance. But the distance was not in space, it was in time. He was looking into the end of what he saw. He saw the end, and therefore that end justified all the means. But when he comes out at the end, he comes out as the author of the script. He comes out as God himself. And everyone is going to come out as God. So we pass through in this little state called man. And we think how miserable. We begin, and then we end, and that's it. But it's not so. Everyone comes out in the end as I am. But I am completely awake. And that is God. So when you meet all these characters of the Scripture, they're persons, but you will know, if you see it all in your mind's eye, they're all states. States personified. And we have taken the personification for persons. We have taken the gross first sense for the ultimate sense intended. And the vehicle that conveyed the instruction for the instruction itself. And so man has taken Scripture as secular history. And it's not secular history. It's divine history. And these are the eternal states through which all of us pass. And when we come to the end, we are Jesus.